Hey there everybody, TrekWorks here with you. Well, we're back out in the shop again starting our next project, and I'm pretty excited. I'm working finally at long last on the Atomic City Models Klingon cruiser. And I've started out here and I wanted to show you guys some of the things that I'm using to get started with here and some of the things I'll be using throughout the entire build of this model. As I mentioned in the review of it, there are quite a few little imperfections here and there on the parts as far as pits and little burrs sticking up here and there on this model that need to be cleaned up. So I've started that process, and I wanted to show you some of the things I'm using as I go along. At the front of these nacelles here, you might be able to see this kind of funny looking green stuff that's on here. And basically what I'm using is this product right here called Evercoat. It's a glazing coat. It's similar to Bondo, but it's a little bit more runny as far as the viscosity of it goes. It's used in the automotive industry for filling in minor imperfections on surfaces, and they'll typically use it on Bondo after it's been sanded down, because after you sand Bondo you'll see that it has little microscopic little pits in it, and this is kind of a top coat that goes over that. They skim this down, they sand it down smooth, and then after that it's ready for priming. This is a much more fine type of a putty to work with than regular Bondo, and it also sands really easy. So it's a two-part system. It's basically mixed 4-to-1, 4 parts Evercoat, 1 part hardener. And when you buy this, you get the kit, so you get the Evercoat and the hardener with it. And it's around $30. It lasts you a long time. I mean, if you're doing just models with it, this will last you for several models. So it's a pretty good investment. And if you've never tried it before, it works really good, especially for covering some of the bigger gaps and bigger imperfections than you need with something like the 3M. Now, the 3M is going to be used in this as well. There are some just really small imperfections in here, and you can see where I've done it in some areas. Depending on how deep it is or how big it is, I'll either use this or this. If it's deeper and bigger, I'll use the Evercoat. If it's just minor, I'll use this. And both of these are perfectly fine to use on a resin or styrene model kit. And then what we're using to glue the whole thing together, as you can see, I've glued these end caps onto the nacelles here, is CA glue. And you don't want to use regular styrene cement or tester's model cement on a resin model. It just won't work. It won't cure properly. And this stuff here is especially made for resin. And you can get this in different thicknesses, from thin, very watery, to medium to thick. I chose the thick one because there are some gaps to fill. So this is more like a gel and not like runny. So it works good for filling in some of the gaps, and it sets up very quickly. I glued these on and I sat and kind of held it in place here just for a minute or two, and then I'm trying to work it, and it's already very solid. It's only been sitting for a few minutes. So some of the other tools that we're using here is we're using this small little flat file. I'm coming in on some of these square edges and things like this that you see that there's just these little tiny molding imperfections in, and some of these areas here like this in the back, and I'm just cleaning all that up and doing it here and there. Same thing, the basic hobby knife here, using it to shave down different little spots on here that are, they probably don't show on the camera, but they're there. They're little ridges and things that are in these parts. And just kind of cleaning it up. You just want to make sure you don't dig it in when you're just kind of scraping it along there, and don't go any deeper than you really want to. And finally, this big flat file, not really needed on these parts here, but I wanted to show it to you because later on when I do the bridge area, the forward section of the ship, that cap that sits on top, there's sort of a gap. It's not exactly level. So what I'm going to be doing is going in and filing with this, and the bigger and the wider the file is, and the more kind of like motion you use like this, don't stay in one place very long. When you file, you kind of file like this, and that gives you the will really help to keep it level. You won't be putting any indentations in it or digging it. You don't want to dig it in on the edge either. You want to keep it nice and flat, and that'll bring that surface down for me, so when I set that cap down on there, it's going to be nice and level with no gap going on in there. So some basic tools that can be used for modeling. Not everything has, it's kind of one of my things here. I'm trying to point out that not everything has to be bought at a hobby store or things like that, especially some of your primers and some of the other products that I've showed you. For example, the TranStar primer that I'm going to be using again on this one, that high build stuff, you get a 16-ounce can of that for around 10 bucks, and that's probably 4 times what of use you'll get out of it than a regular can of primer that you buy at the hobby store. And it seems like that stuff is just overpriced because it's just marked for hobby products or whatever. But some of these things can be done with different materials. So hope you guys find some of this stuff useful. I'll be coming back with some new videos here pretty shortly too. I'm going to be doing an LED lighting and wiring tutorial. I've got some stuff here in the background, if you can see, going on, my power supply and my breadboard. And I'm going to be coming in and showing you guys some basic soldering techniques and how to set up LEDs on resistors and how to wire them, and basically how to do some lighting on some of these models. And then we're going to come back after that with a couple more reviews and some new other upcoming announcements of some upcoming projects that we're going to be working on. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. So until we see you for the next one, everybody, happy modeling.